Greetings, everybody. It's Jim. In the Labyrinth is the role-playing portion of the Fantasy Trip game setting by Steve Jackson Games that was resurrected after 25 years of being on the shelf because the rights were owned by another company called Metagaming. Well, because of legacy copyright rules, which I'm not too privy about, but I do know I don't care because Steve Jackson ended up with them back and got released on Kickstarter a few years ago. And man, was there a swarm, like a bunch of bees in a hive. I mean, just went after it because everybody remembers how elegant the system was, and it hasn't changed and didn't need to. It is a beautiful system. And the thing is now, as you can imagine, yes, the forums and the social media groups were all a bunch of nostalgic people at first, but something's been changing. You can see it when you see the new members, and there are new members all the time. And there are people that haven't played the game much. They've been just hearing about it, or they finally played a game of Melee or Wizard, the combat system portions of the fantasy trip, and they say, I want more. I want to see if this works as a role-playing game. And the reason this is really important right now, and the timing was great, is because of Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. Why? Because it's actually old school. People can't go around saying, oh, this game's old, so I don't like it. No, the whole reason 5th edition came out is because they wanted to go retro because they lost something throughout all the renditions, especially 4th edition, which was a complete curve of what Dungeons and Dragons was. But now what is old is new again. And that's what I'm talking about today. So what is the best way with these new people to capture them about the essence of what the fantasy trip is all about and turn them on to it rather than just having them play melee and wizard battles all the time? Well, today I'm going to be talking to you about a module that you probably already know that you should be using that is perfect for the job. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about why you should be using Death Test from Steve Jackson Games. Now, it should be mentioned that this is a programmed adventure. It's kind of like one of those choose your own adventures. You don't need a game master to play it. You could easily play this solo. All right. And basically, you're going through paragraphs and you're going to make choices. And you're going to go to other paragraphs. It's going to direct you back and forth. And then you get into a lot of fights. All right. So definitely a lot of replay value in this as well, because you could just take you and your friends or just you yourself and go back in. I played Death Test, I think, 5 times in a row. And I played Death Test 2-3 times and got through it. I mean, there's a lot of replay value, and considering it's only $15 for Death Test, and all you need is Melee, which you can actually even get for free if you wanted to. I suggest just dipping in and taking the $15 so you get the actual counters and the map. Make it easier on yourself. But for $30, you're getting tons of replay value, and of course, if you just want to just jump in the Wizard, you're not going to go wrong there at all. So the story of the Death Test is pretty interesting in and of itself. There's this great king called the Thors, that's his title, and he's from the city of Ardonarain, and he's got thousands of soldiers. He doesn't need more soldiers. He needs heroes, okay, to lead them. So he wants people with that it factor, okay, the creme de la creme. So he's made this elaborate labyrinth, and he stocked it full with monsters and traps and everything. And if you make it through, glory awaits, because you right off the bat, it's like you're a commissioned officer. You could be leading 100 men after you get out of the Death Test and be paid very well. Okay, on the opposite end, of course, you're just doomed. You make it out alive or you don't. And there's a lot of reasons to go in there. Some people just want to get the job that you're set for life practically, or you are just desperate for money and have to just go in there because you have no other way. Now, there's some interesting stories can come in there, like how are teams made, because basically it's a team of 4 that go in. I mean, do you get to choose your team? Are they chosen for you? That could lead to some interesting scenarios. But the thing is about Death Test, Steve introduces you to all the different creatures that are in the labyrinth and how you have to approach each one differently. Okay, they are the basics of the game. And one of the great things about this is the first Death Test, and I say first Death Test because technically when you buy Death Test, you get 2 of them. You get 2 of them for 15 bucks, man. This is hours of play, not just because of the first time around. There is replay value in these, absolutely, and you can challenge yourself by making your point spread a little bit less each time. I'm going to get into what I suggest to you in a second, but yeah, now the first one, the first death test, actually is best for just melee. That's what they really focus on. It's just the fighting, and the second death test gets a little bit more if you wanted to play wizards, and they have more things going on in that direction. Now, that doesn't mean you can't play wizard with the first one, or you could just play the second one with just fighters themselves. I'm just saying that they kind of gear towards it. And what they also do is they give you, again, instructions on when you're fighting something, what changes. Is like, okay, some of them are just basic, but I mean, some of them will be like, okay, remember, you got to do this because this is a different rule here and such. And so it's a great learning tool to get people into the game. Now, that's what this video is about, how to get people into playing in the Labyrinth from Melee or Wizard. Because, yeah, people may love the system, but they can only play so many of those battles so much, right? What gets them going in the Labyrinth is that legacy, is that experience points, is the idea of growth, a story developing and such. So, if anybody who's ever played Death Test knows that there's probably a few approaches about how to get new players into Death Test. The most obvious one is just the way it was meant to be. 32-point characters, you get 4 of them, go in, but you gotta tell them ahead of time they're probably going to die. Matter of fact, you can just assume it, say, look, experiment with these guys, get used to the system, play it fast and frantic, and just boom, 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 and let the dice fall where they may. And then once they do die, let them build up new characters with 33 points for being good sports and go in again. And if they die again, let them go up another point. And this will do a few things. 1, they'll have stronger characters. 2, they'll already know the layout a little bit. And 3, they'll know some of the tactics at that time, and they'll get stronger every time. And they'll get used to what different character point levels are like. That's one of the things I had to learn. Going from 32 to a 34 to a 36 level character, it's a lot more different than you would think, just going up 2 points. It's a big difference. So definitely that's what I would suggest. Now, if you don't have the time, and this is the big problem here, because that still takes a lot of time to go from 32 points and go in. My suggestion really off the bat is this: just let them have 36-point characters. Okay, the game's tough enough, even with 36-point characters. I've been selling games for years, and people don't mind losing, but they don't want to be gutted. And if you consider using just 36 points characters and letting them win a little easier. And just as a reminder, folks, if you've come this far in the video, there's a good chance you've liked the video. I hope so anyway. Please take a moment to smash that like and subscribe button and just let me know I'm doing a good job. I do appreciate it. One thing that I absolutely adore is the idea as a game master, how they utilize the maps in the game. Death Test 1 uses the Melee map exclusively, and Death Test 2 uses both, I believe both, Wizard map and Melee map. It definitely uses the Wizard map though. But the reason I'm saying this is because there's a ton of encounters in the game, in each game. But the thing is, they always use the same maps. And just by small little changes, it gives it a different feel. Now, it may not seem like a big deal. I mean, obviously it can change, put a few walls and change the configuration of where the monsters are at. But what's the lesson here? The lesson here is you can change things up very quickly just by using the same map over and over. I know when you get those mega hex tiles, the temptation is, okay, let me set up this room. Okay, now let's set up this room. And it takes a longer time, while this, you can get straight to the action. And I do definitely like the idea of how they promote that. And one more piece of information for those of you who like Death Test 1 and 2. As I mentioned, every room in the Death Tests were basically based on some monster that was in the Labyrinth, right? Basically as an introduction to how to tackle that monster. Well, my brother just finished up the last finishing touches for the Bestiary project for the fantasy trip for Steve Jackson Games, and there were a ton of monsters. So what's that mean? Well, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe Death Test 3 and 4 are just around the corner. I'm hoping so. Let's hope for a critical success on that one. See you guys all next video.